I want to take a bit of a longer look at Learning Score and show why I think it's such a fantastic tool for lesson planning as opposed to writing down lots of text on paper. When you start off, you've got a blank sheet and you need to put in the title and the learning objective. I'm going to use something that I know. I've taught the Battle of Hastings for the last 6 years, so I'm going to put in here, the Battle of Hastings is the title of the lesson, and I need to think what the learning objective is going to be. Well, the learning objective here really needs to be longer than 30 characters. I'd usually have all students should, and most students should, and some students should. But here I've only got 30 characters, so I have to be careful what I'm going to say. I might change it when I actually verbally present it. But I'm going to put, to begin to develop empathy, which is a good summary of the type of thing that I would want to develop. So I put my name in, put the lesson that's 60 minutes long. You've got various options there. And I'm going to put in the tags which are associated with this particular lesson. So it's going to be a Year 7 lesson, it's history. What else can I have? Planning, obviously. And I might put in empathy as well. So once I've got all my tags in there, there's some advanced options I can put in, like the skin and everything like that. But whilst I'll show those, I'm not actually going to put those in at the moment. I'm just going to press OK. The idea is that it's a bit like a musical score. So down the right hand side you've got the groupings, individual, paired, etc. The activity, what is they're doing, the media that's involved, PowerPoint, sound files, etc. Review activity, reviewing the learning, and then extension activities as well. And it's as simple as just dragging and dropping things in. We're in edit mode at the moment, but later on you can play it. So what am I going to start off with? Well, at the start of the lesson, I like to have a purposeful activity. I usually get them to write down the date, the title, and the learning objective. But during that time, they can be asking me questions and thinking about what they're going to be doing and recapping what they did previously. So this is a whole class activity, and they're going to be writing some stuff down. So in here, I just click on the pencil, go to title, and in here I'm just going to go to learning objectives and say that this is what they're going to be doing. In here, of course, I could write longer learning objectives. I could say the all and the most and the sum part of it if I needed to. When I've done all that, press OK, and I can move on and think what they're going to be doing next. Well, actually, I think that instead of just dropping in another class activity, I can just extend the one that I've already got. So let's have a think. Let's get rid of that one and let's just extend that one to be a bit longer. And think, right, well, what's that going to run into after they've done the learning objectives? What will I do? Well, I'm going to be talking about what their success criteria is. If they're going to be successful in this lesson, what will they have achieved by the end of the lesson? Well, by the end of this lesson in particular, the one about empathy and the Battle of Hastings, well, they would have been able to know what empathy is and give an example of what empathy is, and perhaps feel what it would have been like if you were a Norman soldier or a Saxon soldier. So I'm just going to put some notes into there to myself and to show them what they should be doing. Right, so after this, I want them to be talking to each other, not just to me, but to each other. So I'm going to do a paired activity. I'm going to drop that in there. What do I want them to do during this paired activity? Well, I want them to do two things really. I want them to talk to each other, but I want them to produce something as well. So what are they going to be doing during the bit where they talk to each other? Well, something that they particularly like in Year 7 is challenging each other, trying to come up with weird and wonderful questions. So I'll do that for the first bit, I think. I'll have some student talk in there. And then for the second half of that, after they've challenged each other, I want them to work collaboratively on something. So I could get them to write something down, but actually, no, they've already written something down this lesson. I get them to draw something instead. So what could they draw? Perhaps they'd use a map. So in the student talk bit, I think that will get them to use that competitive element. What I'll do is I'll get them to ask each other the hardest questions they possibly can based on the work that we've done already about 1066, the Battle of Stamford Bridge, the various invasions, why England was such a rich country, etc. And get them to feedback as to who got the most questions right, etc. When they've done that, the next thing I want them to do is to draw, and I want them to use it as some type of narrative instead of just writing down words. Because I've got a range of abilities in the class, I'm going to get them to use a blank map. I'm going to use a blank map of the UK and get them to summarise the story of what's happened so far. Because really the story of 1066 is a very visual one about various people invading and people moving around the country, etc. So that's what they're going to be doing for the second 5 minutes. And once I've done that, just press OK. So far I've got a class activity and a paired activity. What type of resources and media am I going to need for this? Well, I'm going to need a PDF. I'm going to need a PDF of the 1066 map. It might be a Word document or whatever, so I'm just going to put it in there like that. I can upload these later. And I just need to call it whatever it's going to be. So I'm going to call this one blank maps. I know what it is that I'm talking about. So that's that sorted pretty much. After this, I need some type of review activity. What am I going to get into after this? Well, I need a dialogue. I need some type of way in which they're going to share this. So most teachers will be familiar with the think, pair, share activity. This is just going from the pair to the share. So they're working in a small group and they're saying, well, what hard questions did you ask? What was the hardest questions that you did? And then after that, they might be sharing their map. What did you put on there that we didn't? Did you think about this? What's good about your map? What have you missed out? What are the little interesting facts that Mr. Belshaw told or I found out that I want to share with you? So I'll do a quick kind of sharing activity there. And then when I've done that, then I need to think about what I'm going to do next. Well, after this, I think, well, how can I kind of go from the small to the big and the big back to the small? Well, I'm going to go back to a whole class situation. I need to be thinking about what's the input going to be here. We've reviewed what's going on in 1066 and all that. What we're going to do next? Well, I'm going to have some input. I'm going to have to actually teach them something. So I'm going to basically use some video here. I'm going to use some video clips. I'm going to use some short video clips and showing them what the Normans felt like before the battle and what the Saxons felt like. But I need to give them kind of heads up of what they're going to be looking at. So I'm going to ask them a question, a key question, but also I'm going to get them to either write down or think about what they're looking at during this clip. So I'm just going to drag on a clip here, SWF movie. You can upload those later. How long is it? Well, this one's just a 5-minute clip there. So I'm gonna put that in, and I'm gonna have another clip. I know I'm gonna have another clip. I'm gonna have 2 clips, and in between those 2 clips, I'm gonna be getting some feedback, some questions and answers, that type of thing. So the first one might be the Saxon clip. The second one might be the Norman clip or whatever. In between there, I'm just going to put in my question answer. I always have a key question when I show a video clip, because it means that it's very easy to ask a question at the end, and then it starts the conversation going, and then students tend to kind of snowball from there. So this is just the second video clip, and I'm just putting in for my own benefit what it is that they'll be doing there. So I need to make sure that I put in that I need to ask the first key question. Sometimes I get them to write them down. It depends on how the lesson's gone. And again, in this one, I need to make sure I recap what they've learned and put in the second question in there as well. So I've got a nice structure so far. I'm going from whole class to pairs to small groups, back to the class, teacher talk, bit of video. I'm mixing things up a bit. I'm making sure that I'm making the lesson flow. I'm making sure that I've got their attention and they're engaged. When I've done that, I need to change that to Q&A again, or feedback or something like that. When I've done that, when I've filled in all those bits there, I need to be thinking about the end of the lesson and how I'm going to bring it all together back to the success criteria and the learning objectives. Well, what I've got at the end of the lesson is I've got some new learning going on. So I need to be thinking about, well, how's that all going to fit together? Well, I need to sum up at the end of the second video clip. I need to say, well, what have we learned from that? What's empathy? And can you give me an example of empathy from there? But when I've done that, I need to be thinking, using the orange review track, what it is that they need to have learned and reflect on their own learning at the end of the lesson. So after I've filled in this bit, I'm just going to go back down to the bottom left-hand corner and click on the review tab. And after we've looked at Saxon and Norman examples, I'm going to go down and have a look at the various options I've got. There's traffic lights, there's barometers, there's various things for evaluating things. In this particular lesson, I'm not using the evaluation track just because, the extension track, just because it's not really a lesson where they're going to be able to have a very open-ended kind of process where they've got like 20 minutes to do something. I don't tend to do that at Year 7. I often tend to handle it. So I'm going to do some type of little tutorial activity in the lesson. I'm going to have a situation where one student per group is going to kind of teach them all what they've found out and then feedback to the whole class. So tutorial is another name for it, just class feedback is another one. But I'm going to specifically link that to the learning objectives. And I'm going to make sure that they know what the success criteria are throughout the whole lesson. So you can see really how I've built a lesson very, very quickly in less than 10 minutes there. And as I was going along, I could have very easily been uploading my resources. The fantastic thing about Learning Score is that it then means that you've got a self-contained lesson which you can play back so you know where you're supposed to be. And it also means that you can upload that to the VLE. You see, press save, everything's self-contained. And it means that you don't have to worry about visualizing how it's all going to fit together. I think Learning Score is a fantastic tool, and I'll certainly be using it in my teaching from now on.